Hello, everybody. Whew. Good afternoon. Oh, my goodness. Good afternoon. Good evening. How's your day been? Wow. Hi, new child care. How are you? How was your day? Thanks for joining in. Mr. David is here. I'm really sorry I'm so late. You guys would not even imagine the kind of things that my eyes have seen I've been chatting all evening. And then, oh yeah, now let's do live. Things started happening. Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Mr. David, for allowing me for agreeing to do this. I'm sure you had a really busy day today. I can imagine. So I'm just going to add you on now. Okay. Hi, Mr. Chris. Wow. At last,
Hello, good evening. Good to see
at
you.
long last,
I was
we are
actually
here.
beginning to get worried. Okay, you're okay.
I know I saw your messages, but I was like, hey, I'm trying to set this thing up. If I now go and start responding to messages now, and the thing now refuses again, what will I do? I just said, okay, if I come live, you will just see me anyways. I'm really sorry I started late. All kinds of issues beyond my control. How is everything? How was your day? How was your outreach
Yeah,
today?
it was hectic, it was really hectic. It was good. I'm happy we did it. Went to the rehabilitation center at Ojudu Bega.
Mm,
We shared some love with some of the guests at the center. And then we went to Ikeja, went to one or two of the bunks. Um, I met one or two people I remember from my time in drug abuse. Just to tell you
wow,
that how many years later they are still there.
still
But
there.
we were able to speak with some of them and share some toiletries, some clothing, and some food with some of them.
Wow. It's quite an experience. I mean, like, okay, we have not even said what your name is. So let me introduce myself. My name is Ayo Ayeni. I'm an advocate. Ayo Ayeni. I've been told to pronounce my name right. Ayeni. I'm an advocate for women and children's wellness. It's something that I really, really am passionate about. And you, Mr. David Folaranmi, is the founder of David Folaranmi Foundation, a one-time drug addict that is now doing really good with his life, better than some of us that were never even that were always straight and good all our lives. So it just shows how much of 360 can happen to anyone at any time, right? So you're welcome. Thank you so much for joining me here.
Thank you very much
You
for
are a
having me.
survivor, and when I read your story, I mean, that from that day, I started looking at you with a different eyes. Like in my eyes now, you are no more just a mere mortal. You are one
Really?
group of people somewhere. I mean, because I know it's a lot to go through and come out of. As you said, some
It
people
is.
never make it out.
It
And to
is.
make matters worse, I feel like quite a number of there is no much of empathy for people who are doing drugs. And I
There's
am
none.
also guilty of this, honestly. I'm guilty
There's
of
none.
it myself. The empathy is not, it's hard to be sorry for a drug addict. Like, really?
Exactly.
You're like,
Exactly. Exactly.
sorry, I don't feel sorry for you. But I mean, as I said, I'm guilty of this, and you must understand our plight as people who have never been there. Is an emotion that we need to start learning, because I was so touched by your outreach today to say you're going to all those I don't know what you call them one name. Is
Bunk.
it some
Bunk.
what?
Bunks. Bunks. Bunk.
Bunks, aha. You go to the bunks and you distribute toiletries and stuff. It's really hard. Those are not things that a lot of people are doing, because it's not
Mm.
something that you think of. Yoruba will say ayoni, ayolo pie or something. So I want you to tell us. And a couple of days ago was World Tobacco Day.
Yes.
And it occurred to me that I mean, for me, who is a novice in this issue, I feel like that's where drug addiction can easily just start from. It looks
Emanate from.
harmless. Say that again.
That's where it can emanate from.
Yes, and it is so accessible even to children. And then I conducted a small survey among people around me to say, what do you think about shisha? And I know that shisha is just like, like a fancified kind of tobacco product, but they all didn't see anything wrong with shisha. It was very amazing to me. They think it's cute. I mean, one said, I can't take shisha, but like, I admire girls. I just like going to the club and see girls doing shisha. Maybe it's just flavor. That thing is flavor. So it's amazing how accessible drugs are to young people, and the age keeps getting younger and younger every time. So, can you enlighten us about, your own journey? And it's also easy. Again, the stories I've heard, again, it's also easy, how easy and innocently some people start. So some people don't even start out to say, I feel like doing drugs, or I want to experiment, or I want to taste how it, see how it is. Some people are innocently lured into these things. So I want you to tell us, like, the beginnings of this thing, a little bit about your own background as well, so that people who are seeing you for the first time, I've heard your story over and over again. So I know some people who are going to be watching this or watching the replay, they are going to find it very useful to them. So can you just tell us a bit of your background and talk about the accessibility and how easy it is to start on these substances?
Okay, thank you very much, Ayo. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for hosting me. Thank you for having me. I'll start from where you stopped and try to track backward, and then I'll get into my story. I'll infuse it with one or two other stories about other people. Today is the International Day, the United Nations International Day against drug abuse and illicit trafficking. Now,
African.
the theme for today is better knowledge for better care. And I liked
Yes.
the moment the team was announced. I liked the team because a lot of people don't understand that drug users actually sick people that need to be treated as such. Now, this knowledge comes out there, once this knowledge is made available to the general public, I think the ripple effect will make will be in turn will make drug abuse a thing of the past. Like on our way out today, just like you're saying, I was talking to somebody and I said it's very difficult to have any empathy for drug users. A lot of people will say these are useless people, morally useless people. That's what people will say. But you don't know that most of these people come from responsible homes. Most of these people actually had a plan for their lives. Nobody sits down, nobody goes to bed thinking, oh, I want to be a drug addict. Oh, I want to spend 7 years in cocaine addiction. So basically, I'll now go into my story. In 2010, I went to the UK for my master's, and my friend, like I've said it before, introduced me to cocaine. And against my better judgment, I tried it. I mean, my background, I was born into a very, very strict, morally upright and tight, decent Christian home. My parents took me to church from childhood. I started teaching in Sunday school. By the time I was 8 or 9, I was leading the cell fellowship in my local church. By the time I was 8 or 9, I went to mission schools from primary to secondary to my university. I went to a missionary university. And it was when I went for my master's that I just threw all these values out the window and tried cocaine. And then that started 7 years of torture for me. So in this period, I go into like the worst form of addiction I can actually ever talk about. I sold everything I had, started selling people's things, started lying to people to get money. It was bad. I got back to Nigeria because I couldn't stay in the UK because it gets to a time where you can't afford these things and you need to be around people you can get money from. So I was back in Nigeria. I was living in the bunks. I was living with other drug users, and it was a very horrible experience. I saw people sell their bodies. I saw ladies sell their bodies for as low as 300 naira, and a particular girl would sleep with 20 people in a day to make 6,000 naira to be able to buy half a gram of crack cocaine. I saw a lady who sold her 4-day-old baby for 15,000 naira to be able to buy a gram of cocaine. I've seen people do the worst of almost everything. I've seen people use their children as collateral to get drugs pending when they can pay back. I've seen women beg their daughters, their teenage daughters, to sleep with dealers, so dealers in turn can give them cocaine to use. So drug abuse is, I always tell people, contrary to public opinion, it's not something that is enjoyable. It's bondage. It's an affliction. It's like in self-imposed prison. The reason I started mine was peer pressure. I bowed to peer pressure because my friend, it wasn't the first day he gave me. I tried it. He kept giving me. I kept saying no. The one day I just decided to try it, and then it started all of the problems I went through. So um, just before I hand back over to you, I want to just make this point very clear that you could be from a very good home, you could have the very best of upbringings, and you could actually still fall into this. I'm happy for everybody who has internet. I always tell people, don't make the mistake of going into it because, like the MTN commercial says, it's a one chance sports, just might never come back. But for those who have gone into it, just like myself, there's hope for you. It's not the end of the world. You can come out on the other side and do good things with your life. So
Yes.
I think that's a little summary of what I went through. I'll just wait to get any questions you have, and then I'll answer them directly.
Okay. So the purpose of this, I'm looking at this from the angle of actually how do we now, because I mean from everything you said, it wasn't as if you were raised on the streets or you got exposed. It seems like you have averagely, I mean, to put it in the barest minimum, reasonable parents who did the best they knew how to do. I mean, you even
Mhm.
got an abroad education. So for me, my fear is how accessible these drugs are to kids. What is the most effective way for us as parents in this drug-laden world? Drugs are all over the place, from cocaine to meth and all kinds of things. I mean, like the most ridiculous things are getting people high. I heard some things recently. I'm like, what? I'm not even aware they have those components, but they keep getting smarter and smarter every time. So, how do you think, as parents, what role do you think that we can play in order for us to help our children to make those right calls? Because I mean, we can't protect them forever. So even if we cage them at home, one day they have to go out, one day they will be on their own. I mean, some people start doing drugs as working class people. I mean, they never touched drugs all their lives, and they start
Mhm.
working, and that's when their problems with drug starts. So how is it that we can nurture these kids to, so if they ever get exposed to the situation you got exposed to? Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, the line just started breaking towards the end of what you were saying. But if I heard you clearly, we started by talking about how accessible, unfortunately, these drugs are. And yes, unfortunately, these drugs are very accessible to kids. Even on social media now, on Instagram, you have drug dealers who look for customers or clients, as the case may be. Um, Getting a score of cocaine or heroin or marijuana is just one call away. And then in places
Hmm.
like Abuja or Lagos or most of the big cities, Enugu, Port Harcourt, you actually have crack houses, designated crack houses. These are drug parlors or drug environments where these things are sold like a regular market, where you could just walk in and you make a request. You want to buy so grams of cocaine or heroin, whatever it is you want to get, and it will be sold to you without any questions being asked. So it's unfortunate that these things are easily accessible. The government has to do more. We've been liaising with relevant stakeholders on how we can actually put a stop to this. But it's a billion naira empire. It's a billion naira business. Unfortunately, people make tons of money from this trade, this illicit trade. So it's difficult to push it out. It's difficult to push it out of our society, which is why we as an organization preach enlightenment. We don't want anybody to even get into it. So now to your question, as parents or family members, the family or the parents play the most important role in ensuring that the children don't get into this. Now, the first thing you need to do is to equip yourself with the relevant knowledge. My organization does seminars, webinars, symposiums for parents, caregivers, teachers, school owners, and things like that, because we need to educate the parents on what it takes to even know if your child or your ward has started going into drug abuse. You need to know the telltale signs. You need to know the causes. You need to know the repercussions. You need to know the preventive methods. So we organize some of these things to educate the parents, because some of these parents don't even know. In 2013, for instance, when I knew I was beginning to hit rock bottom, I sold the first car I had sold was in 2013. I had nothing in my account. I couldn't keep a job. I sat my mother and my father down and I said, look, I have drug abuse issues. And I remember very well my father thinking I was talking about Panadol. And I said, no, I'm doing cocaine. And my mother didn't believe it because she felt cocaine was a thing, a Western thing. It was only in the movies. There's nothing like that in Nigeria. So parents, religious leaders, teachers, caregivers need to actually be equipped with the right information to be able to pass the same information to the children. So that's the first thing you need to do. Then, secondly, parents need to actually form a bond with their children and their words, because sometimes, like you said, there could be a mistake. There's a story of this lady. She's an angel. She's a wonderful person. Her friend, she came back from Scotland. She just had finished her master's. She came back from Scotland for a program, and in that program, just after the program, they were having an after party, and her friend slipped cocaine into her drink, and she had that drink, and she couldn't talk to anybody about it. The long and short of the story is that began the start of a drug addiction from 2011 till date. That's 9 years. She's still in it. She hasn't come out of it. She never went back to Scotland. She sold everything she had. She started sleeping under the bridge. This is a very, very pretty lady I knew from childhood who had the whole future ahead of her. Now, I think if she was close enough to her parents, she could say, look, mom, that something has gone up in my head. A light bulb has gone up. Something has switched. So there's a problem. But I don't think that tight-knit relationship was there, and it wasn't possible for her to speak to her parents when it could be helped. When it just starts, you can cage it, you can help, you can work on it, but once it starts getting too late, that monster begins to develop in an individual, then there's a problem.
Right. So I think what you're saying, sorry about that. So like every other issue, we need to just build that relationship with kids such that if they ever get into that kind of situation, they come to us first.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
And then
So
when they now come to you, you need to be equipped with the right information to disseminate to them.
okay. So is it okay? Like if somebody takes their first ever cocaine, for example, or their first ever any drug is it better when it is caught early? Like, is there something that can be done if you've only taken cocaine or meth once or twice, as opposed to years of being?
Yes, there are a couple of people I know who tried it once. They sought the help they needed and they got out of it. Now, the first thing that happens is when you get it, there's the chemical imbalance in your brain. You feel the euphoria and you feel, okay, there's heaven on earth. There are people who have described a hit of cocaine as better than 1,000 orgasms on my English or my language. Now, once that happens, your brain starts telling you this is something different, this is something new, this is something unique. You know there's a problem. If you're wise enough and you reach out for help, the first thing to do is to take you out of circulation. They need to make sure that, look, this thing, you don't ever have it again. And then detoxification starts. You start taking the relevant fluids and all of that. Water is fine. You take water for 7 days, you're going to wash your system by yourself. And then once that is out of your system, it's now a thing of the mind. You now have to work on the mind to forget that experience. And then that person is fine most of the times. 9 times out of 10. If you take it the first time and you cry out for help, you don't go back to it.
Wow. Okay. So we should ensure that, okay, I think, okay, so the first step is we as parents need to get knowledge about this thing. Like we cannot keep pretending forever and ever that is an evil thing. It is here.
Exactly. It's right here in our midst. It's right here in our midst.
There are bonds everywhere. And in one of your other programs, I heard that I said there are bonds as in like we would not know because we are not into it. But it's right under our noses. Like they are
You
everywhere.
walk right past some of these places. Are you in Lagos or Abuja?
I'm in Lagos.
Okay, in Lagos, you know Ikeja very well.
Say
You
that
know
again.
computer, you know Ikeja very well.
Yes.
You know computer village very well.
Yes.
Okay, right there, just a street or two before computer village is a bunk. And in that bunk, you have over 200 drug users who are there day in, day out. They live there. They live there. They just go out to get money to come back to spend in the bunk. In Mushin is another place. In Agege is another place. In Opalende is another place. In Lekki, there are places like that. You know, so you don't know. You can live right next to it and you wouldn't know. Most times you see drug users come on, I think they're mad people. They're actually very intelligent people who just have their minds twisted because of drugs.
Wow. Okay. So as parents, we should develop that relationship. We should ensure that we ourselves have the knowledge on what to do. Now, I think that again, another problem I see with parenting, parents and their attitude to drug. I mean, everybody is so much more afraid of their children being sexually molested than they
Yeah,
are of them becoming drug addicts. But I think
yeah,
to me, like it is almost the same probability, maybe a little
exactly.
less. I mean, for one's child to get stuck on drugs and for one's child to get sexually molested, like it is because it is getting to that level for me in my eyes. So is that a true thing?
I think it is, to be honest. I'm very sorry about all the horrible things that has happened to women, and nobody has to go through any of those terrible things.
Yeah.
But there's a very, very thin line, like you said, between sexual molestation and getting into drug abuse. Now, I don't know if you heard the story about the 7 guys who raped 2 girls because they made fun of their friend that she was still a virgin. That happened last week or thereabout here in Lagos. Now,
Mm.
those guys drugged the drinks of these girls in a public place. When they drugged the drinks of these girls in a public place, they led them to the venue where this illicit act took place. Now, in my opinion, and this I stand to be corrected, if those girls knew that their drinks had been spiked and there was a problem, they could have cried out for help before they were lured into a private place where these things took place. 70%, and I don't know if this statistics is right, but I got it from somewhere, but 70% of people who commit this heinous act of sexual molestation, rape, and other sexual gender-based violence are usually under the influence of drugs. Because Ayo, except a guy's head is totally twisted, I don't know how anybody in his right mind will forcefully have his way with a woman. So most of the times, these people are on tramadol, on even something as cheap as marijuana or cocaine or anything. So if we actually take out the drug factor, I believe these sexual gender-based violence cases will reduce drastically. I
Mm.
believe so. It will reduce
So
drastically. So
now we're even beginning to see correlations between all these vices that happen in our
e-
society that work us
e-
sick as parents.
exactly, exactly.
Now, for
It's
kids
sickening.
out there, is there okay? So why people spike people's drinks? Does it not taste
Yeah.
different? Is it the
No, it
same
doesn't.
thing?
It doesn't taste different. My drink has been spiked in my own whole agbalagba. I'm feeling like I've known it all. My drink has been spiked before, and I didn't know it. I'm telling you,
Wow.
I didn't know it. It's tasteless. It's colorless. So if I put, and you know now the sad thing, it's most of the drugs used to spike drinks are as fine as refined as powder, your regular powder you use. So once that's mixed with any sort of liquid, it could be used in a syringe. So if you have a pack of Five Alive, for instance, I don't need to open it. I can just inject it. And once that's
Ah,
injected, the person will think, oh, my drink is still sealed because the lid isn't broken. So the person takes the drink and finds out that, oh, it's spiked. And then, like I said, it's tasteless, it's odorless, it's colorless. You wouldn't know until you start feeling woozy. And most times are not, it's usually late before you get any help.
okay. So is there any form of decorum that we can teach our children? Like, when we do sex and sexuality education, we talk of decorum, when people are beginning to act a certain kind of way, shut the door behind yourself in the bathroom, speak up when somebody is trying to touch you. But I don't know, is there any kind of signs that we can warn children about to say, okay, if you go to this kind of place, I don't know, because it just seems impossible in my head. What are the things that children can do or young people can do to protect anybody actually? Because as I said, I've heard of people who started using drug as working class people. So is there any
Mm.
form of telltale signs that can guide people?
Well, to be honest, first of all, if someone is a drug user, you know from his appearance, you know from his speech, you know from his lack of finesse, confidence, and stuff like that, you know. Now, on the other hand, most people who spike people's drinks aren't the drug users. A drug user doesn't have that time to be spiking your drink because one, he wants the drug for himself. So most times, people who spike other people's drinks aren't the chronic users. So the only advice I have for young people or for anybody in general is vigilance. You
Hmm.
just have to be very vigilant. If you're getting a drink, make sure it's gotten by someone you trust. Open it by yourself. If you're done consuming it and maybe you still have half left, if you have to use the loo or something, don't drink it anymore. Don't just take any chances. Watch the places you go to. Watch the people that offer you things to eat or to drink. I've heard of stories, especially in Lagos, of people who even inject some fruits. Because if you inject something like a banana, it's difficult for anyone to know it was injected because it's moist on its own already. So, and nobody can tell that a syringe was used to inject it. So, who are you collecting things from? Who are you taking things from? These are questions people have to ask themselves because sometimes you don't go there to buy it, you don't go to buy drugs by yourself, but indirectly taking a drug infested meal or drink or something from someone unknowingly, and it always has the same result. So we just need, I think, vigilance. Just need to be more careful about what we take from people and where we go to and what we have in those places.
Thank you so much for that. So now my question is, people who actually who would spike your drink, what's in it for them? What do they stand to gain? Who are these people?
90% of the time, people who spike people's drinks either want to steal from them or want to, yes, it's still stealing, or want to have their way sexually with them, which I still think is a form of theft. So people who spike people's drinks want you to be in a situation where you don't have control over yourself, and most of the times you don't even remember what happened. So if your drink is spiked or your food is spiked, then you don't know what you're doing. I could take all the money in your house. I could have my way with the person without his or her consent and things like that. So that's usually the reason behind spiking of drinks.
See. Okay, so I see what you mean by watch where you go and what the crowd you hang out with. Awesome. So
Exactly.
these kinds of so subsequently somebody will spike their drinks for the purpose of getting them to lose consciousness or make decisions in a certain way. And then
Yes.
after that, they will then on their own get addicted to these drugs.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is a lot for my small mind
Hey,
to
there's a story I told in one of my chats. I don't know if you heard it. It happened in 2013. I had just flown into Abuja from Lagos, and I needed a fix. So I called the dealer. He told me he was in a particular hotel. It was a popular hotel. So I took a taxi down there. As soon as I got into the room, I saw about six girls. Now, these girls were definitely school-aged girls because they were low cut. You could tell when you see a 13, 14-year-old. You could tell. So immediately I asked him in Hausa because the guy was Hausa. I asked him, what on heaven's earth are you doing with these underage girls? I mean, I'm using drugs, but I haven't lost my mind. I
Hmm.
haven't lost my mind. Still have some sense of decency. These girls are teenagers. These girls are young teenagers. They're just not teenagers. And he said, I should not worry about that. I should just leave that to him. A part of me was sick to my guts because I couldn't really imagine what he was doing with them. So I got my fix, I got what I needed to get from him, and I left. And then, like a week or so later, I called him again and I went back to that same hotel. And then when I got there, I saw these same girls. Now, they looked high. And I said, what have you done to these people? And he actually explained to me that they were from a very popular school in Abuja. And he had lured them out. He had gotten them hooked on drugs by spiking ordinary fiber life that he had given it to them. And now they were hooked on it. So what he does now is he pimps them out to this other horrible set of people who want to have sexual intercourse with underage girls. And they in turn pay him huge sums of money. And he in turn pays the girls with drugs. So that happened in
Wow.
20, yes, that happened in 2013. Now, it was, I was sick when I saw this. I was sick, but I was using at the time, so I couldn't help, I hadn't helped myself, not to talk of helping other people. So
Yes.
I went back home, and then let me just fast forward to last year, December. My wife and I were in a bunk in Abuja. We went there to do some outreach, just the usual things I do, give out toiletries and things that these people can use, because it's a really, really horrible situation in the bunk. You live in the bunk and you see ladies on their periods and can't afford sanitary towels because they'll rather use their money to buy cigarettes. So they can't even afford
Wow.
sanitary towels. Yes, they'll just use anything they see. So it's horrible. So I went there with my wife, and then this girl just reached out to me. Like she was literally almost dead, but she just tried to reach out to me. And so I asked her, does she know me from anywhere? And she said, yes. Don't I remember her? I said, I don't remember you. I know, at least I know most of the drug users in Abuja. I don't remember you. And she said that that time in 2013, I came to that hotel where that guy was using them. She was one of the little girls there. Honestly, Ayo, if you saw her, I could count her ribs. The shirt she was wearing like a singlet, a guy's singlet. Her breasts were all over the place. You could see her ribs, and I was like, what could have happened to you? You were in one of the best schools in Abuja. What happened?" And she now told me how she eventually got HIV/AIDS because she started sleeping around to fuel her addiction, and how her parents have abandoned her. And I'm like, how can your parents abandon you? That's not, they can't abandon you. So my wife and I took her into temporary isolation, tried to reestablish contact with her parents. Yes, she had HIV, and we were all sorry about that, but we tried to explain to them that, look, this is not the end of the world. Now, this was a little bit above my level of expertise, so we engaged a larger organization to help with treatment, retroviral drugs. She's now on medication. At least she's been reintegrated with her parents. Life might be very different for her going forward, but yes, she's with her parents now. She's taking her
It's much
medication. We spoke
different.
to her last week. Yeah, we spoke with her last week and her mom last week, and they are grateful to God their daughter is alive. But you see, all these things could have been avoided.
Yeah.
All of this could have been
Yeah.
avoided.
And and
The drug dealers are getting more daring. They're getting more daring. On Instagram now, they sell cocaine. They're getting more daring, and there are so many ways they are using to lure our young ones into it, and it's terrible.
wow. And this for me is the heart, is the core of this life. That okay, so what are now the things? Okay, now you've spoken about, because as I said, so many you can parent all the things you know how to parent, and things will just still go left. So
Yeah,
you mentioned that there are certain things you can, when you see a drug user, that you
yeah,
will know. Well, you
yeah.
are saying that because you know. Somebody like me, I'm not sure I know any telltale signs
That's all
that
things.
I know that I can warn my children about. So what are some of those telltale signs that when you see someone you know to want to observe first before you get too close?
Okay, first of all, the appearance. The
So
person is going to
how
have
do drug users appear? How do they appear?
they have a very shabby appearance. Then the eyes are dilated. Well, depending on the particular drug you're using, your eyes will be dilated, your pupils will be dilated. Sometimes your eyes are wide open. If you smoke marijuana, your eyes are dim. If you smoke crack cocaine, like I did in my time, your eyes are wide open. Heroin, also some of these things, they're pictorial. There are pictures with some of these things that you have to see. You see somebody using glasses at night, there's something wrong. You see somebody appearance very shabby, dirty, can't it just doesn't look right. You know when you see these people, you will know. And then when you find out someone always has money problems, it's always asking for money. There's an issue. There's an issue. When we went to
Okay, are you still there?
yes, I am. We just went off for a bit.
It's raining in Lagos heavily. It's raining. I'm sure that's what happened
Oh,
to the
really?
connection. I'm guessing.
Oh, okay, okay, okay.
Okay, so you were talking about shabby looks, but it's not everybody that is on drug that looks shabby. Oh. You know, I told you that there are
I know
some
when
working
you
class.
get. Yes, I know. I agree with you. I know people who look try to keep up the appearance, but you can't get it wrong with the eyes. You can't get it wrong with the eyes. The eyes are going to be dilated depending on what you're taking. You can get it wrong with the eyes, and also the drug the person is using. You can't use heroin and look good. It's not possible. I don't know any human being abroad and in there that uses heroin and looks. You're going to be shabby. You're going to look horrible. You're going to look skinny. You're going to look you're going to look unhealthy. You're going to look unhealthy. So yeah. So and like the eyes too will give the person away most times.
Wow. Okay. So can you tell us? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Can you tell us a bit about your journey to recovery? So for me, I mean, this life is not only for preventing our young children from what's it called now, from getting into drugs. It's for those young people, as you said, secondary school kids who are already doing these drugs. What are there are some women now, some not only women, sorry, parents who have children that are on drugs, but they are misinterpreting their behavior for just youthful exuberance. Can you still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can't see you though, but I can hear you. Okay. I think I heard your question. Can you hear me yourself?
I mean, it's really bad. Okay. Did you hear the question well?
Yes, I think so. Maybe you should repeat it. It's breaking now. The line is breaking. Are you there?
Oh, good Lord. I cannot hear you.
The
I can't
network
hear
has
you.
gone bad. I think, like you said, it's the rain in Lagos. The network is really, really bad
Oh,
on my end. Can you hear me now?
yes, I know. I don't know what to do. Would it help if we started, or should we just manage and keep on going?
Okay, just try and repeat the question if I'll hear you this time. Okay, let's restart. Let's try and restart.
Are you still there? Oh my. This is the interesting part.